So my background is from Sony Ericsson, which is where I worked first. Ericsson was huge. It was had a lot of processes, had a lot of waterfall models. It was really hard to make any change or suggestions, or it had to pass through many people to get approved. And the QA was very simple. We got a lot of bugs in the first round, less bugs in the next round, and so on. So it's very simple to calculate when QA would be finished. And then we moved to Agile in Golden Gecko. So you've seen this maybe a couple of times before. We have the normal stand-ups every day. We meet first in the morning the test leads. I'm talking about QA. So test leads mean that they are organizing the projects from a QA perspective. Who is supposed to test on it, how many resources, who's the main tester, and so on. And we're joining as well the project stand-ups, which means that the project owner calls for stand-up as well. So we actually have two stand-ups, one for QA related and one that's the whole project. And we also do sprints, of course, 1 to 4 weeks. And deliveries to QA can be even more than one time per week, can be several times per week. And the purpose of that is to keep the number of bugs on a low level for each release, so we can focus on the most important things in the beginning. When trying to solve issues, always cheaper to solve them early than later on. So that's why we do a lot of testing in the beginning, which this one will show. So we work both with Waterfall and Agile, and in Agile we get a lot of releases throughout the project. So already from the first prototype, which we might send to the client, we do some QA. And whereas in Waterfall, the black one, we almost, when it's feature complete, all features are there, we start testing. And the number of bugs we found, they go lower and lower because we are fixing those issues. Whereas in Agile, we have very few issues in the beginning because very little functionality to test, right? And then it continues. Maybe in the middle here, we have a client release. And before client release, we do have a different kind of testing. We have regression testing. So we test everything that is specified in our test cases. Whereas in the smaller releases, internal releases, which I call them, we test mostly bug fix verification. So we only test the bugs that have been fixed, not the whole scope, because it's very expensive to test over and over in Agile everything. So we need to focus on the changes. And in my team, which we started, we are 20-something people, and we are 5 test leads. So it means a lot of organizing and also assigning the right resource for the right delivery. Yeah. And as I said before, also, the reason, the big thing I saw a really good impact on Agile regarding the quality is that in the beginning we developed the core feature, the most important ones for the business. And then we move on to the other ones. So it means that the core features, when we do regression testing here and here and here and here and here, we retest those core features many times. So we make sure that they work much more than you would in a waterfall model where you verify it a fewer times. It also means that the complexity, with the maturity, the complexity will get more and more complex, we've seen, of course, because you have more features, you have more integration testing you have more performance testing you have to do, because it's more things involved. So actually with time it gets more and more complex. It takes more time as well to do QA. It's really hard to see this one, right? I have a simplified one. This one is our QA processes. So in different stages we have different things we do. We have a kickoff, we schedule, we set which user stories to test, we see the key devices and the languages, and we have a lot of activities. But to make this simple, this view can show it. So what we do in the beginning is we create a test plan. And test plan is really important to create because you need to define what you're going to test and what you're not going to test. This is later also used when you talk about guarantees and warranty and stuff like that. You can go back to what you agreed upon, which is in the testing scope. You don't promise you will support all versions of some OS or all phones. You have to be specific because it's going to protect you later on. We execute those test cases, we perform different types of testing. I'm not going to go into detail what kind of testing it is, but functional, non-functional, performance, load testing, usability testing, security testing, for example. And we have a defect management system we call JIRA, and we use that to log our issues. So all the issues we log, which I will show on another slide, have not only the normal one, the priority, but also the category and what type of issues are and who found the issue. So we can make filters to find out how well is our QA performance. Finding metrics in QA is really difficult, and JIRA is helping us a lot with this. We have communication with the test results through PM or PO as you call it. Then we have the final sprint ready or not. If it's not ready, it goes back another circle. And we have many of these circles as I showed on the previous slide. Once it's the final sprint, we're ready with feature complete. We have the user acceptance testing. So this is defined by the client, what is acceptable for the application, but also by ourselves. We usually take a new QA to test on that product then. Because the old QAs are so worked into how the application should work. So you need to have a new fresh of eyes to verify that the application is fulfilling what the client wants. And we're always caring about what the client wants, what the client success factor is, not what the application can do. It's not a requirement, it's not a quality check, it's a quality assurance. And then we have a test exit report and lessons learned. Lessons learned is one of the most important documents, I feel, because it's summarizing how we work, what kind of problems we had, what things we did really well. So that's one of the key documents I see, and that's something we go back to, and we also share with the PMs. We also worked in our own processes to improve our own processes, which is one of the parts like continuous improvement of our QA processes. The top challenges we have in QA. Testing time. So with testing time, we'll usually see that sometimes we get requests from PM. We're late with the development, so we have to actually skip the testing. And they inform the customer, we're going to skip the testing, and the customer says, no, yeah, no problem, we know about it. But that's actually one of the practices I say no to, because we don't know who's going to test it. He maybe sends to his colleague and he feels there's bugs in it. It affects the brand of delivery, and maybe those stakeholders, they don't get the information of what is working, what is not working. I always recommend as head of QA that it needs to be escalated to me, and I have to escalate it to the CEO, because we really want to avoid situations where we deliver untested software to the customer. The customer should never be the crash test dummy. It should always be us, the QA tester. They should find the first errors, and hopefully we should be able to fix those as well. Testing environment. Well, the environment can change. We have the production, we have the stage, we have the test. And the problems with this is what we see is sometimes we're not informed that the background is changing. We just test the front end. We have an application, manual testing. So what we use to mitigate those problems with the environment is that we use automatic testing. So we have some kind of automatic test using Postman, for example, using Selenium, so that we use basic tests just to make sure that the background hasn't changed without us being informed. Because QA needs to be informed about changes going to affect the front end. Otherwise, we report everything as errors, and maybe we'll lose time on this that we shouldn't be losing time. The test coverage is also one of the issues. The main issue is that the customer always expects that everything should be working for all the phones and all OS versions. That's why we need to specify this in documentation, and he has to approve it, according to me at least. So what we do is we write a test plan, we ask the PMs to approve it, which sets what environment should working, and then we send it to the customer, and he has to approve it as well. So everybody understands the limitation of the testing. All right, understanding the app. This is one of the most difficult things, especially when you come from. I felt this was very difficult because we're in a different environment here. We have different experiences. How can you know what a customer wants in New York? What is the personas? What is the requirements? What is the wishes that those people have? So it's really important to get information from design team. Design team can inform us about who the target user will be, the demographic, where he lives, what he wants, what kind of expectations he has on the app. And also from sales, we get the success criteria. So the sales needs to inform us, the customer, he wants to succeed in this way. If we know all those factors, we have a better picture understanding from a user experience and user testing that this is an application that will succeed. Another good tool is usertesting.com. It's a service where you can hire testers all around the world and assign them a task in your application. So they can actually test the application, say what they feel about it, and write the comments. And you understand what the mentality is of those people. It's recorded the video, the sound, and so on. And up-to-date documents. Now I don't mean documents as, you know, we have the agile, non-agile. Documents as in we know the release notes for the developers. We need to know what features have been fixed because we don't want to do full regression runs. We need to focus on the features that have been fixed. Or from a design team, for example. Design team has agreed about the design with the customer. We need to know what that agreed design is. So he has to update. You know, just talk on a meeting. Oh, we're going to change this color to this color. Nobody gets informed, and we miss it in the QA, and it ends up with the customer. So we really need to get all those documents, and this is one of the typical problems we're having. All right, the QA tools. So how many here are have worked with, or are working with mobile app development? Nobody. One, right? So for the rest of you, maybe this is not interesting, but international testing standard is really a good thing to have when you discuss with the client. He says, but what kind of testing, non-functional testing requirements do you have? What is your test cases? So your standard test cases. You make unique ones for the application, but the standard ones, how do you define them? So Aqua is an organization that works with a lot of big brands, and they have come up with several test criteria. One is the performance testing, one is the functional testing, and one is the accessibility testing. So they define hundreds of test cases which you can use in your project to make sure that the application is testing to according international standard. Otherwise it's just, this team tested something, but we don't know, are they testing according to approved, recognized methods or not. So this is a great way to do it. I talked previously about Agile JIRA. How many of you have used Agile JIRA? All right, how many of you have custom fields in Agile JIRA? 3. So what we did, we added some custom fields in JIRA, which means that we can get some more interesting data from this great tool. And you have the standard ones like description and conditions and stuff like that, step by step. You can record videos when you find a bug, you can attach log files and so on. But the priority is also standard. You can set the priority of the bugs right. Then we have the custom fields, the QA testing, which means that how do we find the issue? Was it manual? Was it automatic? Was it by client or by end user? Or Splunk Mint? Splunk Mint is a tool that you can catch the crashes of the application in production environment and even in testing environment. And it sends those, saves those logs with logs and what device they use and so on. It's a really good tool to see what's happening in the market. And you also have how we found them with test case. Is it exploratory testing? Is it user experience testing? and the QA category. So we can see, for example, in projects in the beginning we have a lot of crashes. In the end of the project we have a lot of design issues. So the designers can go in and see what issues are related to them. The security related developer, he can go into security related issues, and so on. So it's more useful not only for QA and the specific developer, but also for seeing where we need to improve. And on the pie chart over there, we see that here it says exploratory testing, and this is test case testing. So it shows actually that even though we specify the test cases very clearly, we still have a lot of exploratory testing issues which we find. Today, that's around 30% of the issues we find is exploratory testing. They cannot be caught by just testing the test cases. So we have to be testing the same thing from different perspectives, different scenarios, with knowledge about the industry that the application is going to be used in as well. And you can get a lot of other interesting data. We also have a QA test lab, which means that we have a lot of devices, over 300. And this is more a sales, I'm not supposed to say it, but it's more a sales thing. When we come in a meeting with 3 other QA companies, we say, how many devices do you have? Well, we have 20 most popular, we have 300. So why we say that is because we bring in the most popular. If we ask the customer, do you want to do a local, regional, or global launch? He says, I want to do global launch. I don't want to do a local in my city, It's only 10 most popular devices. Then we take the 10 most popular devices for each market and put on a list. And we get a huge list. And they will actually pay for that. Whereas otherwise, QA is very hard to sell. I'm not sure if you're trying to sell QA, but they say, I just included, I'm supposed to have good quality. But you get the quality you pay for. If you pay more, you'll get higher quality for sure, because we'll find those issues. The more time we have QA, the better the product will be. We have a mobile cloud testing. Maybe you use some. It's a very nice way to run some automatic scripts, and you can do some kind of screenshots and stuff like that. So that's really good. Simulator testing. There are screen sizes or pixel sizes or memory sizes that we have not yet tested. So we want to know that will it work for this screen size? How will it look like for in 2 months? A new Samsung is going to come. They come every week, but so we need to know that how it's going to look on this device before it actually releases. We can sell in that we check that screen size. It's mostly design issues. Okay, test manager. We have an in-house made test manager because we want a simple tool, very stripped down to core functions for the testers. It's very simple for them to use and very effective for us. It actually integrates with JIRA, so we actually create issues with JIRA and it gets data from JIRA. It also integrates with another in-house tool, which is the inventory manager, because we have 300 devices. How are we going to manage those different testers, different OS versions on the devices? So we need to manage that with the inventory manager. What it shows is also, you got a quick picture of how much of the testing has been performed. Each testing has test cases. You can see step by step how you're supposed to test the application. And you just check the boxes if it passes or fails, or if it has an issue. You can also see how long time the devices have been tested and also who tested them very easily. You can, of course, export these reports. The inventory manager, as I said, we need to have a really simple tool to, we have an inventory manager. So one person actually is the one person who's managed all the inventory for our phones. Because it's 300 phones. I mean, if everybody gets phones, it's going to disappear in 2 weeks. So we really need someone who's responsible for this the phones. He checks them in. He has the safe. He keeps track that the version is right, that the software is, that they're clean as well, because we need to have clean phones when we retest them and so on. And we can easily chat with the person who has the phone. We cannot just wait, you can see how long time they had the phone as well. Now you had the phone 2 hours, give me the phone. Now I've been in companies where they book the devices. He's not using it because he hasn't unreleased, but the tester is booking it for months, and it's just a resource not being utilized. So this tool enables us to improve the utilization of the devices we have bought. Do I go too fast? Sorry. All right. This is also something that saved a lot of headache for us. Splunking, I talked about it before. Crash logging. So actually in production environment, we can see when the application crashes. We can get that report. And that's great to know, that even before the client has picked up the phone and starts complaining on us, we know about the issue and we can say, are we working to fix it? Sometimes we don't fix the issue before the customer calls us because it happens to some user he doesn't know about. And we've seen through this that less than 1% of your customer or the end users will report the issues back to you manually. Less than 1%. So most of them will not report that they have issues with the application. They will just say, it doesn't work, I uninstall it. So they will lose business on this. In this way, I, as a QA manager, can benchmark how many missed bugs do we have compared to how is the team performing. And then look into what is the reasons why we miss those issues. Is it device specific? Is it feature specific? Is it test cases? Do we need to update test cases? Is it user stories? Where is the issues? Is it the network? What is it? So this one gives us a great insight. And I know you can use this plugin for even web, I understand. I'm not sure if maybe you have similar tools in web development. Anyways. Okay. Test Fairy is another login, but it logs actually what the user is doing. This is great for when you send it to the client and he replies back, application doesn't work. And you said, can I get the steps by steps? No, he didn't say why, it doesn't work. We got a lot of those. So when this tool arrived, we were really happy about this because we can actually see step by step where he clicked, where he went. Did they have Wi-Fi on? Did they have 3G on? Did he remove the memory while testing this? We can get all that in this tool, which is great. We can understand the one who's paying us better when he's testing, or his friends are testing it. This is only during the testing, it's not during the production, of course, because it sends a lot of data. It's a little bit more slow as well. Now to go into really hardcore, we have a tool from AT&T called Application Performance Analyzer. So it actually analyzes the data you're using in your phone. It's connecting your phone to the computer. You get really cool graphs. Some engineers at the companies really like this kind of tool, so you can impress them. In practicality, it's not so much useful. You can see how much data is sent. For example, let's say you have an application, you have a drop-down, it fetches the data from a database somewhere. And you can only see if, say 20, you have to press next or something. But it actually fetches all that data, it's just on the client side it's next. So maybe we can inform the developer, hey, can you split up this function to have paging instead? So you don't fetch all those posts, and just fetch a few of those. That's kind of feedback we can give to the developer for this. And also some companies hire QA just to find out why my application is slow. This is one of the tools you can use in that case. Okay, we also do performance testing. So a lot of our apps have many users that work at the same time. And we need to make sure that it can withstand a high load. A lot of people accessing the backend, or if you want a middleware somewhere as well, or some API somewhere. So we use the JMeter to simulate big loads. And usually we have approximately 10 computers and they execute the same script. We have 3 different things we check for and the different kind of loads. And this we do almost for all the applications we do now. In the beginning of the startup, we got very simple applications, not connected ones. Now almost all applications are very connected, have many APIs they're calling from different places. And we need to make sure that it works with high loads, many people accessing it. Another tool is great. Sometimes we install a proxy which we can control on the computer side. So we can set the speed of the internet. This is really important as well. If you have really high speed and trying to access a service, you can get a lot of people accessing it. It works. But if it's slow, then maybe it's a certain amount of ports from the server that's busy, and it cannot serve new users. So that's also a factor to care about. Yeah, as I said before, we use Monkeytalk. Monkeytalk is a really nice tool. You can actually embed in a very nice way. You can just shake the app and start recording manually on your screen, and then just save inside the application and then run that script again. It's beautiful, it sounds beautiful. In practicality, it's very unstable. Even though you run the script again, there's the same application, no backend changes, nothing. It has timing issues, and you have to configure the script a lot to make it stable. We have used Selenium and we use Postman. Do you know about Postman? Yeah, some of you. So Postman is a great tool because A lot of our apps are using RESTful communication to communicate with the backend. So we can actually record what is sent from the application and then play that again without actually launching the application. We just check that the data back in the server is correct. So it's a part of the automation testing we do before we start all the manual testing, just to make sure the backend is intact. And now this really hardcore tool here is something we developed by ourselves. It actually verifies that everything in the application has been run. And how we do that is the programmers add a log function. So every feature, it sends like a specific code to a backend. And we get the log files from the backend and make sure that we have done all the steps in the application. Because we have clients say, how do I know your testers if they know that they're in Cambodia? How do I know that you have tested all the features? I don't believe them. How can you make sure? In those cases, those clients, we have connected this kind of log service. We can see that all the different parts. It's more work for the developers because they have to add one more line, like send log code something, and we need to keep track of what is the log code, what it is doing. But it's a great way to show them, here's the green, well, here's all the logs, here's all the features have been tested. All right. Now we're coming to the end. So I want to, of course, make advertisement for QA. QA is the best department of them all. It's not just becoming a tester, you have a lot of opportunities in QA. Of course, you have the main level here, which is the tester. We start as associate tester, we continue as a tester, senior, and expert. But also, we have something we call skills and expertise. So we have theoretical and practical and an exam for each of the skills. It means that people can get many skills during 1 year if you're really ambitious. You can learn about load testing. You can learn about security testing. You can learn about UX testing. So you don't need to wait 2 years for a promotion to the next level. You can actually get some salary increase, some recognition. You actually fight to achieve skills. It's like a gamification of your career. It makes it more interesting that you learn more things. You get rewarded for it as well. We also have a leadership track, so you can become a test leader, as I mentioned before, and we have a management track, so you can become a group manager. Today, it's more like the test leaders have also achieved a group manager, so they're the same person. And the test leads are also included in doing the testing, not only the testers. So almost everyone is included somewhere in doing manual testing. Also, what we keep track of is the domain knowledge, the telecom, finance, automotive, enterprise. So sometimes they wonder, what have I learned? How can I apply my knowledge about one business to another field if I want to change career, which never happens. But if they want to change career, we can then pinpoint, say, I have the knowledge about what is a success factor of companies in the telecom. I know what they need, and I know how they work, and I know, how can we make an application for them. So they have a domain knowledge, industry domain knowledge, which is really useful. I have 15 minutes left for questions and answers, I think. Please, I was really fast. I tried to get as much time as I can on questions and answers because it's a lot. And I hope there's a lot of questions and answers.
Actually, testing is not fun.
Testing is not fun. Are you a developer? Yeah. So I want to say that as well. There's like books about why a developer shouldn't be a tester. I'm not going to go so far. The main thing is that testers have a really interest in understanding how something works and who's going to use it, and testing from different perspectives. Whereas developer wants to be creative and produce things and then move on to the next thing, right? But being stuck with the same thing and over again and retesting it, that's not so fun. But there's people actually burning for equality. Sometimes that's the difference between, you have a lot of input and output is just, you stop everything bad that comes out. So only highest quality come out. I say sometimes the most important thing is that the highest quality is high, so the expectations will be high as well. And they will pay us high as well for good quality.
But you have something to inspire us how to make testing. Like because when you make the testing, you need to think, you need to imagine you are a user, you need to analyze it step by step, repeat again and again. So it takes really long.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, how to inspire you? What we do have inspire is that we have different types of testing. So you will do different kind of things on different devices, and you will usually test just the change, not everything again that works already. So you just focus on the new features and so on. I would also recommend that any department, any company should have a separate QA department that finds people burning for that, and maybe developers should focus on unit testing and automation, and maybe just testing on one device, or that's it. And it's fine because the QA department will find the issues hopefully, and that's the reason why the QA department should exist, because you guys should focus on producing, and we should make sure that what you're producing is high quality as well.
I was wondering if you could actually unpack what you're saying about line items in a sales contract for testing. So you have your gold, silver, and bronze plan in testing.
Yeah.
All right. So, but aren't you actually implicitly saying that if we offer you a bronze plan testing, that we are not giving you the best product you can have?
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you actually, because implicit to me as a client, all right, you're selling me something which I trust in you. You have tested this to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
As you say, I'm not your crash dummy.
Yeah.
But if you actually segment your test plans into different levels, which is payable according to level of effort, aren't you actually saying, I'm creating an inferior product, a better product, and the best product?
Yeah, actually, I mean, to be honest, yes, you're saying that. You're saying that you pay for what you get for. If you spend a lot of money on QA, you will get really high quality. That's what you're actually saying. But the salespeople, of course, put a nicer word than I put. I'm a QA manager, Salesperson will say like, I think the 10 devices or 20 devices, most popular devices, will be sufficient for your product. They will not say, oh, you can buy 30, but we will just show them the options. And if there's some that say, oh, we want to have actually more because some reasons. But the salesperson is, fingerspitz to feel like he has the feeling of the fingers that what the customer actually wants. That's one of the salesperson's, skills. So he said, no, you're sufficient with 20 devices to test. Sometimes they don't even bring up the devices. Just say, we're going to do testing on your. It depends on the knowledge of the customer as well. Yes.
Who are those involved in creating test scenarios? The developers, the QA team, or the clients?
Right. So what we do is we have the success factor that comes from the sales. So we understand what is the success factor of the products. That's a huge input to us. We have the user stories that design works together with sales and the customers. We understand the user stories. What is the application? As a user, I want to be able to do this and this. And then from design also creates the wireframe, the first, how it should be connected, and the mock-ups, how it should be looking like. And from that data, the test lead then digests that information, writes test cases based on that, and connects that together. So in JIRA, we actually connect a user story, which the developer works against, to a test case. So you can click on a test case on a user story, and then you can see the test case for that one, and you can see the issues related to that user story. So you know which user story has how many bugs. So it makes really elegant with Agile QA, the JIRA.
Are the developers or clients involved in creating the test case?
No, but they're involved in that way that, not developers, but they will see it because we raise bugs that are related to the test case. They can have to read about test case. But what we do is with the test plan, that's also including test acceptance criteria and test cases, we send that to the client for his sign-off. So he knows what we have read about in the scope. So this is the scope we're going to test on, because we have limited, time and the level of, how many scenarios we're going to test and so on. The test coverage, they agree about the test coverage. That's the interaction we have with the customer.
The test plan before the project starts.
Well, the project has already started. They signed up. We got some startup money or whatever. So it has started up already. And we got some input from the designers, and also from the PM, and also from the sales. So we have already, it's already kicked off the project. So the first thing we do in QA, we start without testing, we get approval for our strategy, our test strategy, our test plan, test criteria. So we get approval for that first before we start doing any just testing.
Since you have different departments of developers, and then you remind us that you talk when they have some else testing, and they really work on their tasks.
So if the developer switch, do you mean in the project the other developer coming in, or?
Because you have two different roles there.
Yeah.
The developer will be implementing the product,
Yeah.
and then after they implement it, they have to send it to the QA
Yeah.
to do the testing.
Yeah.
But since the developer is now not responsible for testing,
Yeah.
so do you see that this increase the ability to create more
Yes.
or
Yes.
create more product?
That's a good point. That's true as well. The developer, when he knows that there is like QA is going to tell me if I make wrong, honestly, I've seen that there's more bugs coming in because the developer maybe thinks, the QA will find it. They're so good guys. I'm just produce them. That's the case. But they have their own user unit testing, and they have their own manager to review the performance to see how many bugs have associated to the. So there's someone always tracking, that also makes sure that should be at least that the developer is doing a good job. That he's not, but they have the KPIs, the key performance index for themselves. How many bugs does the software I make have? So it's a KPI for each individual and as a department as well. So they should be caring about it. It's part of the performance. So it's not true that they don't do any testing. They do the unit testing, sometimes on their own phones. But what they need to care about is, the KPI. How many bugs does my software make have?
And also, I recognize that we have many testing. How can you tell on which project you will use which tool? Like how do you coordinate sales and so on?
So what we do is we have a standard set of, we have a QA checklist, we call it, step by step how you do QA in a project, which we made by best practices. And that's all the tools that we have is more or less standard which we use. We have a written down script how we perform the testing on it. So actually mostly we use all the tools in all the projects. And it's the tools is just a very quick thing to get. Mostly it's automatic, or if it's manual, it's very fast, it doesn't take a lot of time. What takes time is the exploratory testing the regression testing, the whole applications and different scenarios. That takes a lot of time. The tools is just a small part of it.
Milan, I've got a question regarding what you were saying earlier about after you've released it before you release it to the client, you get them to do the testing as well. Do you provide the test case, the test plan, and the actual test itself to the clients to perform, or do you leave it to them to test it on their own?
Yeah.
On their own instructions.
So what we have is we have agreed with the customer, have an agreed test plan, and with the test cases as well. So he has that documentation already, so he knows what we're going through in our tests. So he can do the same test as we are doing.
And that's also in your maintenance agreement?
So, yeah. So in our maintenance agreement, we have, for example, that if we missed in QA a bug, and it should have been caught with the devices and the test cases we have to fix it. So they will fall back on the agreed test plan in this case, and they will see that, you should have caught this because it's the device you have and so on. And I want to add one more thing for QA that some people say that after we release, we go home celebrating, but that's almost never the case. We actually keep on monitoring how the application is doing. It's maybe not something we can always we can charge money for, but it's in our interest. So we can find the issues before it happens. We review the market, for example, and we have automatic alarms that check if someone has written any comment on any market and in any blog form about products that we have released. So we know about what people is talking about, the things that we have produced. And it's in our interest because we want to have a long-term relationship with the client. So we will know what things want to happen before the client tells us, hopefully. So that's something we have as well. We also have what we call the retainer. So we agree with the client that we're going to keep maybe one person, two persons on the project for a couple of months to just be available to fix things. And those people always work with that feedback we get from the market. So it's a number of hours that we agree with the client. We're going to continue for 6 months. We're going to get 4 hours per day to solve any issues that arise. And of course, they're going to inform you before we get those issues. It's going to take 20 hours, 50 hours, or whatever. So even though we released it, we will continue doing some retainer work on it. That's also a good way to keep the client in the business because you have a relationship with them continuously. Even though you released it and it's finished, they paid the final sum, you still have like a management fee of the application.
Side by side from the written, how about the warranty runs in
Yeah.
release product?
Yeah. How about it?
Yeah, so what if one incident happened into the production that the app that we release and then will you pay?
No. We have, I know what you mean, that like if you don't fix it with certain time, we should have some penalty, right?
Yeah.
Some companies have that with us. That's very critical that we have within some. But usually what we have is we should have someone working with the fix within certain time. That's usually the agreement. So it's not that we haven't fixed it, but somebody is working on it in a certain time. And then we have, that's up to operations, that's the SLA. Like they agree about within 24 hours somebody should have responded, worked, and have a solution working for it. It's not so part of the QA so much. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Like, what is the ratio, like, from a resource point between developers and QA?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems you have a big QA department.
Yes. So the ratio is, of course, varying depending on the project company and the advices, but in average, I would say 50%. So if we have 2 developers, we have 1 QA. Usually that's the case. Microsoft, I heard they have 1-to-1. Have you heard about NASA? 7-to-1, so 7 testers and 1 developer. Of course, because you send up the right. So sometimes when I want to go sales meet, I say, you want to have something that lasts in space or something that breaks the first day. You never buy it anyways. Yeah, so I will say again about QA because QA. Well, I like QA compared to when I worked in Sony in factory when they're making sure the quality on the phones is accurate. They have QC in the factory. They make sure that the phone device just quality check. So you have a list of things that they check. Oh, it's working. But nobody is on the line. Nobody is reviewing how about this phone, the batch of the keyboard, the batch of the display, the batch of everything. How does it feel in the hand? Because the batches can actually feel different in the hand, the quality, because you import different batches of quality when they make the phones. It's not the same. Even the same company produces the same displays can have different batches of displays, different color, and this is really hard to catch those issues. There's no pure QA, there's more QC to just make sure it works. Whereas in our field, in QA, we don't only care about, it's not requirements, we fulfill the requirements. We actually want to make the customer successful. How can you make this customer successful? You have to care about a lot of things that outside the scope, the requirements of the application. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you saying that your the level of user adoption is part of quality assurance.
very much so.
Okay.
So the adoption,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. That it's not only we've delivered on time, and the customer is happy. We also want to see, and there's no bad feedback on the market. There's one more thing: that application has to be used. Otherwise, they will not come back and tell, "Hey guys, you're supposed to be a creative solution provider. Your solution, we liked it, but it's not giving us any customers. So we will not go to you next time. Sure, your quality is perfect, but nobody's using your product. It's a waste of money. That's return on investment. So they really need to care about this part as well. And we have analytics of that. We generate user reports for our clients. QA does that. So we have Google Analytics, for example, and we get how many users are using what screen and stuff like that. One more. All right.
How does QA collaborate with sales and development?
Yeah.
Just from my understanding, first about money coming in. If you have enough money, you can do quality. And if we have less money, we have less feature and less quality according to the money, the budget that we get.
Usually it's like it's a CME's twin. You can't separate them. So when we sell a project, QA has to be included because we have a certain level of our services we provide. We can say, you can just have development, you won't get any QA. You have to provide this is the minimum package. So QA will always get QA. We don't deliver anything without having proper QA. What was the other question? It was two questions. There was one more.
Yeah, I think I have a bit of understanding.
All right, thank you all. All right.